Okay, so we fetched. So this is in continuation to the previous discussion about the input data in terms of a little bit about the tokenomics and understanding the landscape of how the understanding of the input data can be utilized for getting the asset management in a different ball game altogether. So let me just get back to this. Okay. So it's basically we talked about the unlocking part, and this is particular algorithm for unlocking techniques around implementation of different parameters. And yeah, just give me a moment. So honestly, right now, even when you are or any of the enterprises is developing any kind of user engagement kind of a platform which is based on the UIs and stuff, it is very important at the back end to utilize the machine in a proposition where energy harvesting is possible. When I say energy harvesting, that is basically taking the energy from the environment, and particularly folks who understand a little bit of the hardware part, they would be able to appreciate that there's a lot of heat dissipation at any given point of time on from these devices, from the laptops. Not palm tops are not that relevant right now, but any kind of computing device, it is generating some kind of heat. And that heat dissipation has to be controlled. In many aspects, a lot of fans are deployed as an external mechanism to control the heat control parameters. However, we don't need GPUs. What is needed is to develop processors in place which is able to take care about the conventional way of forming these UIs for the user engagement. So I will just be just give me a moment. So I was just this was a lot of scattered data. I tried to collate the stuff in terms of so the achievement of, okay, here I would rather say when we are talking about the aspect of the engagement of the person through the UI, it would be more based, or the right word would be the candidate. When you use the word candidate, it gives an opportunity for upscaling different stuff. Okay, so where are you from? I'm part of the internet protocol, so yeah, I'm very much part of the protocol, and I have been online for the longest time. I think I logged on to internet or got logged on to internet very early in my life, so from the 90s. So perhaps let's come back to this understanding of the achievement. So you have to have the algorithms developed where you don't call the person who is logging onto the network. Okay. So I'm actually on a handheld device right now. So
it's 18 hours.
So in this time zone, it is 18 hours, but we are working 24 cross 7 just to get the data set right, as to develop upscaling of the skills for all the data sets, which is applicable to a kid, adult, and a senior. And at any given point of time, the pendulum of this understanding of a child, adult, and senior, it can be haywire also. But what we need to understand is to upskill folks to understand internet for the development of the cognitive ability. That is very important, because internet perhaps has to be sanitized right now, because there's a lot of garbage on the internet, and that has to be taken care. Okay, so in this particular case of the framework, so the achievement of the candidate. So use the word candidate rather than anything else, because that the connotation of the word itself is very positive. That being said, it is based on loads of models, and personally, the models which I have been working on in my personal capacity, I have been working on personalizing the models based on the different characteristics and the parameters of the candidate. Then it becomes very easy to tackle the problems right now which the world is facing, who are on the internet but don't know how the internet has to work. Um, in this particular case, let me just get down to the next level of understanding. Okay, so if one has to see the IPC of this particular application, it would be G07F17/3267. That is game outcome, which determines the course of the subsequent game. So, okay, let me make it as simple as that. There are very less number of folks who are out of the matrix, and folks who are out of the matrix have the capability to develop games which, once the candidate is playing, can get onto the next game. So perhaps taking the personalized parameters, one is able to prepare the subsequent game. So that particular classification, and particularly let me tell you, you can double the skill set. We are more interested in the intellectual capacity of the individual. Here we are not taking into account the fiat currencies. We are not taking into account the stable coins, because that perhaps is a different arena altogether, and that arena shouldn't be taken into consideration until unless you have folks on same page. So um, so as I said, this classification is particularly G07F17/3267, and it has higher payouts. Payouts, again, in this particular case, what I'm talking about is nothing to do with any kind of currency. It is more from the viewpoint of increasing the IC, that is the intellectual capacity of the candidate, so that the candidate is ready to be utilized for some function on the internet, not the offline jobs. So I'll look into this. Okay, in this particular case, they are calling this particular gaming device as EGD. E, of course, stands for electronics, and here it is like, they're very smart. What they have done is, rather than taking the full form, they have done that. So EGD, D stands for device, E stands for electronic, G generally will stand for a gaming device. So electronic gaming device, but it is not electronic gaming device. This particular device is nothing to do with the Xbox per se, but it is touch basing on that aspect, which is electronic wager based gaming device. And generally any of the devices, what does it include? It includes a first display, first input device, and the flow diagram of the whole scenario here is to execute instructions stored in one of the memories. So it's a generic way of writing a pattern application to cause any of the components. I personally like the word module to be utilized to enable, I would rather say candidate in this case, whatever they're using. I don't think it's a very positive word. So the positive connotation of utilizing the folks would be candidates. Then they become, and we can upskill them to the next level of deploying them for different sectors altogether. So it has to be interactive. It is basically hybrid stuff. I don't want to get into this because honestly speaking, it is just simple stuff. What I'm trying to give a synopsis here would be, when skill-based stuff is there, it has to be determined on the basis of the particular candidate, not on the small data set which has been developed based on maybe, there are folks from the same school, there are folks from the same college, there's a bloodline altogether, negate everything. I mean, you will see the most dissimilar folks in a particular small set of data set. Even, if folks are scoring same marks in particular subject, that doesn't mean the person's skill set has anything to do with the education. So what you need to see is the consumption of data has to be less. That's point number one. What is important is the task given to the candidate to understand the candidate better as to how the candidate is going to do a SWOT analysis in real time. And it doesn't have to be, very practical question. It can be anything random, because here you have to upskill the cognitive ability. And for upscaling the cognitive ability, the imagination has to be good, but it has to be real at the same point of time. So imagination with reality is going to give a good data set for the training purpose also. So when you're training the small models, you can do that training and perhaps build characters around, again, it has to be personalized, not dynamic. There's a lot of work which is being done right now in the world in the dynamic way of doing things, but that is not going to increase the cognitive ability. We have to take out a few more folks from the matrix right now, so that they're able to appreciate what we are building as an enterprise globally. So if that answers your question, good enough. If you have anything else, just send me the DM. I'll look into it, and perhaps I will talk about how the upscaling can be done in real time, and it can be done. So you don't have to even wait for 13 weeks to have an output. If the input, here you have to take another data set, take the output data as the input data, and see what does it bring in terms of, if you have any of your teams which are already working with you, try to give them exercise and look at, as a founder, you have to put in your, I would say, 500% just to understand the whole case study as to how the protocol can be developed, because now IP has no weightage in terms of intellectual property. What has value is the protocol which you are deploying for orchestrating a particular scenario, whether it's a gaming scenario for the upscaling, and forget about the stable coins and all. What is important is that data set which you gather from the training purpose will resolve a lot of issues at hand. And that is what the need of the hour is, given the data set of the global landscape in terms of the political scenario. So we cannot leave the political scenario, but we have to take everybody to the next level of understanding. And that's one reason I don't belong to one country, because internet doesn't belong to a country. Internet belongs to another portal altogether. So there's no point talking about the citizenship. So citizenship of internet doesn't have any kind of passport. So you don't need a visa, you don't need a MasterCard. It just happens. So that's the portal which has been developed. Thank you for watching out the video. Perhaps I got a lot of DMs on LinkedIn, Indian, whatever the pronunciation for different folks all over the world. Happy to collaborate wherever I can, and we'll look into it in the best possible way. Remember one thing, you have to keep whatever you're doing, the input has to be carbon negative, not the footprint has to be negative. So as a founder, as a company owner, as an entrepreneur, you yourself have to be in that zone of being carbon negative. Then only you'll be able to understand the different embodiments as to how the orchestration has to be done. Thank you for watching out the video. Have a great day ahead.